A UK court has held a hearing on whether to lift Tony Blair's immunity from prosecution over the Iraq war. RT's Laura Smith reports.
The background to this is that last year a private criminal prosecution was brought against Tony Blair, and it was blocked by judges because it was ruled that Blair would have immunity against criminal prosecution, so there was no point proceeding with it. This case, though, could see that immunity overturned. It could see him face charges, and in fact the charge that they want to level is one of aggression. So the second aim of this case is to establish whether aggression is in fact a crime under English law. This attempt at private prosecution is based on the findings of last year's Chilcot inquiry. The report was published last year, and it concluded that the war at the time wasn't a last resort, which of course it should be, that the consequences of the invasion were severely underestimated, and that post-conflict planning in Iraq was wholly inadequate. Despite all this, though, Tony Blair has been in public life off and on ever since then. In fact, earlier this year, he announced that he would be making a comeback to politics because of Brexit. Now, when he said that, he faced the now familiar cries of war criminal, but he remains utterly unfazed by those. Listen to this.
The legacy of the Iraq war and his responsibility for the crimes of the Iraq war means that a lot of people will just regard him as someone who should definitely not get back into politics.
Well, his reputation for being a warmonger isn't busted. That's still intact.
I mean, really, he should be in prison. He's a war criminal.
The reaction to the war has kind of destroyed your political life.
Not for me, it's not. I mean, you know, people say that.
Most concerned with this immunity being lifted are, of course, the relatives of those who died in the Iraq war. And in fact, the families of soldiers who were killed crowdfunded £150,000 last year. And they've used that money to have this Chilcot report forensically examined to see whether there is grounds for prosecuting Tony Blair. The hearing is over for now. There's another week being allowed for submissions to be made. If it's not dismissed, it will then go up to the Supreme Court, who will decide whether this crime of aggression is indeed a crime under English law. But the families of those involved may yet get their day in court with Tony Blair.
Let's now discuss the issue with former British Ambassador Oliver Miles. Oliver, thanks for coming onto the programme here. I suppose let's look at the responsibility issue, shall we? Yeah. It does appear that people who are responsible for the invasion of Iraq, those who made the decisions, they appear to be untouchable, don't they? Or do you think that's a statement gone too far?
Well, I'm not a lawyer. I don't expect that this legal proceeding will get anywhere. I can't be sure. My guess is that it won't lead to a result. I think Tony Blair was a war criminal. I've said that in public before, but I'm not convinced that taking him to court is the right way to deal with an issue like this. We live in a parliamentary democracy. I'd like to see it dealt with politically.
It has been going on and on and on, and there have been no decisions, and this decision is still being reviewed. So what is the delay? Why is it dragging on?
Well, I suppose the lawyers are trying to make a case for a new type of action. There's a lot of money in it for them. I don't begrudge the lawyers their money, but I don't think they're going to produce a result. I think the end result will be that we'll have to say, if Tony Blair was to be dealt with as he should be dealt with, it would have to be by Parliament. And that means impeachment, and that's not going to happen, I'm afraid.
Thing is, you know, if we look at last year, there were reports that UK soldiers, they could face prosecution. You've already said you're not expecting anything positive or indeed negative to come out of this, or anything at all. But there were reports saying that UK soldiers could face prosecution over the Iraq war. Yet for now, Blair retains his immunity. Are there double standards going on? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think that's what the court is trying to decide, isn't it? I don't know whether he enjoys immunity or not. That's why the court is having to deal with this question. But I tell you, as a non-lawyer, my expectation is very low. I don't think there will be a result.
OK, well, Oliver Miles, former British ambassador, thank you very much for your time to come onto the programme. Thanks.